escaped, okay.
I think when I go back in the shop and I talk to other mechanics, I talk to them on the way in and I talk to them a little bit there, and I'm probably talking to them over my shoulder as I leave because everything's kind of rush. And if I go up to Rocky with the same information, I probably look him right in the eye and I probably say about 5 things and just write them down. You know, do this, don't do that, do this. Never really give him all the whys and the wherefores. And, you know, Joe Blow tried it yesterday and he thought it didn't work. I never tell him that. I always just say, do this and don't do that, yes, no, and then I leave. It's difficult to give him the same information, same amount of time, or to get him the same understanding that I get the other ones. But I think in the end, I think we have a miscommunication problem because I don't take the time to make sure he understands. But I jump on him when something doesn't happen, just like I jump on the rest of them. He's kind of left out, you know, in that respect.
Yeah, I'm left out a lot. As a matter of fact, practically all the time. And it's really not that easy. I like to join in on the conversation and everything, because this is our group. I work with these guys, and I want to get into it and find out, hey, what's happening, or joke around, or I'm curious about a new rider. And they're talking away, and I just get lost. So I ask them, what did he say? And they just roll their eyes like, hey, Rocky, get out of here, don't bother me. I'm just asking a couple of simple questions. It bums me out because I know if I could hear, I could get in on a lot more fun and conversation, and I wouldn't have to be dependent on them. But I don't hear. I try not to bother them so they don't get mad at me. I leave them alone, and it makes them happy.
Some of the problems that Rocky has at the races is that he stays in a motorhome for one thing. He lives in his motorhome. He doesn't get the benefit of a radio to know about the weather for the next day, or he doesn't see the TV weather report. Like in Michigan, it usually rains. So we all look at the TV weather report. And if it's going to rain, we take our rain gear. You know, and then Rocky will show up with his T-shirt wondering, you know, why me? You know, those are little things. But he misses those things. Or they'll change a pit meeting, you know, a rider's meeting. And everybody says, okay. Nobody tells Rocky, you know, unless I usually remember to tell him. And he loses a lot of that. And, of course, then he's never ready or doesn't have his raincoat or something. And everybody thinks, well, that dumb guy. You know, but he doesn't know. That's the problem. Those are the little problems, and I think there's a ton of those every day for Rocky.
I need an interpreter really bad. If I had an interpreter, then maybe I could be just like a hearing person and be able to talk better with Gary and everyone else. And they might be surprised to find out that, hey, Rocky does have a lot of sense. Instead of thinking that I really don't do much, or I'm not thinking, or I don't have anything to say. But I can think, and I'd like to talk to them about ways to improve the bikes and lots of other things. And I really need an interpreter for that, to express my thoughts.
Any little thing that he misses in the pits, nobody tells him, because we're busy. You know, we've all got our own problems, and I'm scoring a race, or I'm arguing with a referee, or talking to a promoter or something, and I'm not usually there. And I'll come back like 10 minutes before a race. Is everybody ready? And there's old Rocky over in the corner dilly-dallying around thinking he's got another hour or something. And, you know, it's a constant hassle for him, and he's a constant pain in the tail that way.
Oh, I think he misses out the most probably when, like in the meetings, team meetings, like when the mechanic and the team manager and the racing coordinator get together and they're out having a big meeting. You know, everybody's saying stuff, you know, like when my mechanic can be talking to this guy and you're trying to be catching all the words at once, it always comes back to me, you know. I'm the one that's going to lose out too. So I've got to take that sacrifice along with Rocky.
So we're going back to when I'm thinking about, you know, why am I unhappy at Rocky? And usually it's a communication problem. And usually he bugs me for something that I haven't told him. Or he comes in here and needs to know something that I haven't told him. Or I've told somebody else with my back to Rocky and he hasn't seen me talk. And usually when I get mad at him, it's for him coming in, you know, bugging me all the time about something that I felt he already knew or should have known. And when I go back and think about it, it's probably my fault because I haven't told him. I'm still unhappy with him on a given occasion because of that, but it's not his fault. It's my fault. I've thought about those things a lot, and when you really get down to it, I can't blame him for it because he's deaf. You know, I can't hold it against him because he's a good mechanic and he's deaf. And I can be mad at Rocky and get over it, but I can't blame him because he's deaf.
I can communicate with objects
but not with people. Because objects have patience with me. For example, I can pet a cat, but hearing people won't have any communication with me. They just take off. But on the other hand, blind people are able to communicate with hearing people, but they can't communicate with objects. I tend to focus more in on things related to nature, like the sunrise or the sunset, a flower. Things like this excite me. And with noise in the environment, I wouldn't be able to focus in on exactly the thing that I want to study. I'm just fascinated by the beauty of things around me and see things that hearing people tend to overlook. I'm interested in the detail of everything and really appreciate what nature is. Here you'll notice this is my biggest painting. And the reason this is biggest is because it represents the ear. This is my biggest influence on my life. So here it looks like the folds of the ear and how it all comes to the center there. It's beautiful. And down here, it's like someone who's just snipped it off, cut it off, severed it in a way, so you can't hear. So it just comes down to an abrupt end. All this, everything comes into it, but goes nowhere. It's like it's dead. This is a deaf shell, and this is a hearing shell. Let me tell you a story about when I was a small boy. One day at the beach, I saw this boy playing with a shell like this. He had it up to his ear and was listening to it, and I thought, hey, I'd like to do something like he's doing. So, looked around and spotted a shell myself, picked it up and put it up to my ear and listened to it. And then the boy looked at me and said, hey, you can't hear anything out of that. And I said, yeah, I can. He said, no, you can't hear anything out of that. In a shell like this, you can hear the ocean. I thought, really? Turned out it was because of the shape of the shell that you're able to hear the ocean in it. But a shell like the one I had, you couldn't hear anything because of the shape of it. And at that point, I understood what was going on. And that memory has stuck with me since then. It had an influence on my life and an influence on my artwork. I was fascinated with the Titanic because of its connection with deafness too. What kind of connection is it? Well, it happened that this ship hit the iceberg and was beginning to sink and it was floundering, so they signaled for help and they saw a boat about 20 miles, or knew there was a boat about 20 miles off, so they tried to telegraph to it. But the operator on the other end was off duty and asleep. And they couldn't get through, so they thought they would send up the signal flares. So they sent them up and they exploded in the air, and still nothing happened. So they sent it about 8 times. And the boat didn't see it, or he did see it, but he thought nothing of it. He ignored it. And then the Titanic went and sank. And I wondered about that. There was that other boat out there, so they decided to call him. Why wasn't there any communication? They didn't know that the Titanic had hit the iceberg and was sinking. And it's the same type of thing with deafness. People are continually asking for help, but we're being pushed aside, and we sink. And I object to that. We should be paying more attention to deaf people.